Welcome to this edition of the Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate this discussion. We have a special session today. It's in association with NetApp. NetApp has been a major enterprise storage company. Today, it has evolved to be a hybrid cloud data services and data management company. The discussion today is on cloud, because cloud has suddenly assumed massive importance. Cloud has, of course, been growing for some years now, but since the coronavirus lockdown started and everyone was forced to work from home, conversations around cloud have risen sharply. That's because cloud makes such distributed work far easier. And you'll hear a lot more from our panelists today. This trend also has major implications for all of you technologists who are viewing this in terms of the technologies and programming languages and frameworks you need to become familiar with. And that is another topic of conversation we'll have today. So to talk about this new cloud normal world, we have with us some excellent professionals in the technology space. We have with us KS Viswanathan, or KSV as he is fondly called. We have had KSV before in this webinar series, twice before if I remember correctly. He's our go-to person for a lot of information on the tech industry. KSV is Vice President of Industry Initiative at NASSCOM. He previously held strategic and leadership positions at Wipro, Dell, and the Azim Premji Foundation. He was the first country manager for Dell in India in 2000. Welcome, KSV.
Thank you.
We have with us Ravi Chhabria. Ravi is Managing Director of NetApp India and Vice President of Hybrid Cloud Engineering at NetApp. As NetApp India MD, he oversees the strategic direction of NetApp's Global Center of Excellence in Bengaluru. Ravi joined the company in 2005. Prior to that, he had various roles at Sun Microsystems, Silicon Graphics, and early stage startups. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you.
And we have with us Anu Mangaly, Principal Engineer at NetApp India. Anu has deep experience in data technologies. As Principal Engineer, she currently leads the NetApp System Manager, a next generation element management system. She's also responsible for cloud migration technology. Prior to NetApp, Anu worked at Nokia, LSI Corp, Huawei, and Cognizant. Welcome, Anu. Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the chat box. Shilpa and I will put them to KSV, Ravi, and Anu. KSV, let me start by asking you first. COVID-19 has brought cloud conversations to the forefront. You can't imagine the number of requests we are also getting for cloud-related stories. My question is why? Is this kind of distributed that work that we are all doing today, is it difficult with on-premise data centers? Is that the big reason? I mean, cloud makes it far simpler, easier. KSV?
Yeah, you need to take a step back. COVID is just a completely enabler, just got different learnings to different people altogether. If you look back, the journey towards cloud is been on the offing from 2018 onwards. The cloud, the pandemic, the COVID pandemic is when they accelerated the adoption of cloud as a technology. Multiple reasons. The world is on the cusp of experiencing a massive transformation on Industry 4.0 as a concept itself. Network has improved, the security has improved, compute infrastructure has improved, so has completely changed. And there is, in any case, there is an upswing in terms of adoption of cloud, the global market. What has COVID done? It also in the last 3-4 years, look at it, what is also the cloud has done as a basis is this enable a democratization of innovation. Democratization of innovation can happen anywhere. And COVID, as I said earlier, accelerated it. It moved the center of gravity from focus on being from business to business, enterprise to enterprises, from an enterprise to consumer. What has also changed the behavior is the demand for adaptability, availability, affordability, and reliability and elasticity, which has been on the trend for the last 2-3 years, just got tremendously accelerated to the adoption of cloud. And COVID, as it's repeatedly saying, is just accelerating it. People are now demanding faster response. When COVID impacted, when suddenly in 3 weeks' time, millions of people are working from home, how to correspond, what needs to be done. You know, as I was talking to some of the leaders, none of the business leaders changed their plans. They didn't change their plans, but they expected the development centers and the R&D centers such as NetApp in the country to accelerate the plan. As when you know, 67% of the CIOs interviewed recently said, digital acceleration got momentum because of COVID, and cloud is no exception. Even from a cloud adoption perspective, enterprise to enterprise, enterprise to customer has completely changed. That is because of changing customer behavior. That is also because of the people are now responding faster and quicker to changing customer demand, consumer behavior. So all these things are put together. If COVID is an enabler to completely transform the cloud adoption. Even as I said, even before the pandemic came in, there was, even if you look at the startup environment in the cloud arena, the top 10 startups in the cloud players, at least 3 of them were from India. 3 of them were India, generating an average revenue of close to about 1 million revenue per month, $1 million revenue. So it was there already, it has got accelerated to the cloud. So there's nothing to be surprised about. You can only say the cloud, the COVID has taught us new ways consuming the cloud services. It is only going to accelerate farther and faster than what has been in the past.
Okay, democratization also, also you mentioned, I mean, startups, yeah, it's become so much easier for a startup to just start off with cloud instead of investing in data center. Exactly. Yeah. So Ravi, you would add to that. I mean, before COVID, at least some of the conversation that I also had with NetApp was also that technology is emerging even in the data center space, which are so good at making even the data center, on-premise data center, as good as the public cloud and all that.
Right.
Yet today, a lot of conversation around public cloud. Something has changed.
So just put into context, I think KSP kind of gave us a very broad sweep. If I had to focus on just one aspect that makes it very real, we think of cloud as a destination, a place where you do your compute, and increasingly where you're kind of manipulating your data with some, very interesting platforms that allow you to do machine learning, AI, kind of drive new revenue models. You can also associate cloud with speed and agility. It allows a number of our startups that we see in our ecosystem, our customers that are trying to change the way things are done, acquire new customers or get to existing customers in a new way. They're able to innovate faster because they are not going back to an IT department or building out a data center. So what is ending up happening is cloud has become synonymous with speed. I can bypass the entire infrastructure acquisition, procurement, deployment cycle and quickly get to market very quickly. Now, there is an advantage over time that occurs with some of our customers. They say, I want cloud-like agility, but I want to own the infrastructure because I'm going to use it for a long time. The economics of me owning are better. That's private cloud. But at a time like COVID, that entire supply chain gets disrupted for people. You don't have the time to be able to say, I'm going to build it out. So the private cloud story, the cloud on-premise story is still a very viable story. But that's exactly why we kind of have this hybrid multi-cloud strategy, right? If you can't build it out on the cloud, you can't build it on-prem, there's a middle ground. There's many ways to solve the problem. And so I think that's what I would say. Therein kind of is the advantage that our customers are seeing now. There are multiple entry points depending upon what their business objective is.
And even if these supply disruptions and all that are addressed, even when you come out of this pandemic and all that, you believe that the public cloud momentum will continue in the same way?
Cloud momentum is going to continue, right? What we find in the world that we are playing in is that cloud provides you incredible agility. There are still some significant concerns people have around data, around the ownership of data, the procurement and securing of data. In almost every use case, data is a differentiator. The ownership over data matters. And so you're allowing with these hybrid infrastructures, you're allowing people to move to cloud at their own pace. But the momentum is clearly there, right? And far as we are concerned is if you focus on data as a service, if you focus on software elements of how you manage data across a hybrid multi-cloud, it hardly matters where it's sitting. So it'll turn into an economic decision.
Okay.
If I may add, there's a world is moving towards a reduced complexity, which Ravi did talk about: increased simplicity, reduced complexity, more streamlining of the processes. All of them are matured in the recent past in a big way, big ways. All of them are going to allow this continuation as a double engine to fire post-pandemic.
Very true.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned security, both of you. I think KSV also wants to talk about the security. I mean, what are there these concerns becoming less so? Well, what do you think?
I think our maturity. Go ahead, KSV, please.
No, it is security is never, and you are never satisfied with the security parameters what we had. If I had to give some data, what we recently did a study of the adoption of cloud by SMB companies in India. We studied about 1,000 companies. There has been attempt about 17 to 20 security threats on the cloud services offered by the people. So despite that, despite the perimeter fencing, despite all the precautions being taken, there is an element of security, but people are building all those support that is required. But security is, as they say, you bring your secured framework, the fellow who's on a hacker is going to be more intelligent to break it even more differently. So security is never a satisfactory one, but security is something which is a concern. It is currently inhibiting the full use of hybrid cloud that Ravi talked about.
I'll defer to Anu on this one also, because one of the things that's happening right now is the security conversation always used to be a bolt-on conversation, afterthought. You build out your system, you worry about how secure it is. But as Anu will tell you, right now, understanding of security, protection of data is probably the job of every single engineer.
That's true.
Yeah, Anu, if you can just
yeah. So I would say, this is where the hybrid model comes to picture, because rightly Ravi pointed out about the ownership of data. So we have seen that a hybrid model is what is preferred, where the networking also comes very key here. The data customer want to keep in his VPC, but he want his application to be SaaSified. He want the SaaS experience and the agility and the speed or reach to all the customers, but making sure that there is that private experience or the virtual private VPC possibility that is available for customers. So that's why I will say that the perfect answer would be the hybrid cloud situation, where you are having control on the things you are SaaSifying and putting on cloud, versus what's remaining with you definitely in your customer current VPC model that we have. So security definitely is one of the inhibitors, and similarly is I would say these are the areas where enterprises like us are working on, like performance, bringing the right performance. When we started with cloud, how will I meet the SLA that the customer need was a concern. Whether that is going away. I mean, we are a very good player there with bringing the storage experience with the right SLA in all the areas, whether it's on-prem, cloud, or private cloud. So I would say the inhibitors that we have, the cloud providers are rightly working on them, which is also enabling the adoption. I think one point on the adoption front we didn't touch about was, I would say, the OpEx model, the intensification with the COVID situation, customers needing the OpEx model more than being a CapEx model. One reason is, of course, the issue with procurement, that supply chain has broken. But another thing is they really don't want to go to a CapEx model, considering the situation where the business is. And that also drove people to looking for a model like cloud, which would be the alternate or the right option to go for. So I would say that will also add up to the discussion we just had. Yeah.
Sujit, on the security issue, we may add also a point what Anu said is valid, because in a typical enterprise concern or any concern is when a security threat happens, a security incident happens, the three parameters come to place. A, how do you react? How do you respond? How do you resolve? The framework for all of them is evolving, either through technology tools and organization framework. Now, all of them have got matured, but I still say there is never a room for complacency. People are completely working on that to say improve the reaction time, improve the resolution time, improving how to resolve, how do we ensure trust is maintained is important. All these factors, now the adoption of cloud, the trust factor is increasing leaps and bounds. completely increasing leaps and bounds because these frameworks are improving and frameworks are developing.
Okay, okay. We'll come to a little more of the technology later. Shilpa, you had a question, right?
Right, right. Ravi, as we speak about the cloud journey, can you talk about how cloud has emerged as a game changer in India? If you can talk about some of your customers who've embraced cloud and what has their experience been?
See, the use cases and the paths people are taking to cloud are about as varied as the amount of innovation they are driving doing it. There are a number of examples I can give you. There are cases where businesses are looking at vast infrastructure, but looking to, collaborate in global context. So the idea is you have these islands of data, they're sitting in many places. We've got examples of, a design company. Now, if you look at them, they're an apparel manufacturer, an outerwear manufacturer. They're global, all over the world. Their design requires collaboration, again, all over the world. The supply chain itself is very diversified and distributed, depending on which country they are operating in. Their data sets are all kind of distributed. And what we are able to find is that you can cope with all that complexity. Cloud enables you to do that more because you can have local solutions. You still need that one thread that runs across it also. You have universal visibility into everything. You still want to manage it as one business, one innovation pipeline, one distribution system, right? And so the technologies that are evolving in this hybrid multi-cloud world, what NetApp calls a data fabric, kind of evolve in that way. You can have your data on your terms. You can consume it on your terms. You can secure it on your terms. You can operate on it on your terms, but you can have the uniformity of how you manage it across these. So that's one, where the data is distributed, you want to have a single view. There's others that are even more innovative, right? If you look at the world of clinical and trials and drug discovery now, it's become front and center for us. Everybody's become an expert on it. But if you look at it traditionally, it's a very data intensive business. It is a very complex statistical analytical business that kind of tries to, determine what's real truth amongst all the variability you see. Variability on drugs, variability on people taking drugs, how, viruses, bacteria kind of impact us. I'll give you an example of a company that we work with called Icon Inc., right? Amazing company. They have this wealth of decades worth of clinical data. Now you add to that data scientists, you add to that the right cloud infrastructure, suddenly they have evolved themselves to providing clinical trials as a service. So they turned data and locked it into a higher value offering, and technology enabled that, right? You could say that the data that they were gathering has kind of stayed constant over years, but technologies enabled them to kind of operate on it and, monetize it, and even, in some cases make the world a better place because they're kind of able to leverage it a lot deeply. So there are a number of examples. Even if you go back to traditional business, right? Not just our customers. Let's take it what is probably true of every one of us. 80% of the world's transactions, they say, at some point or the other in complex, end-to-end scenarios, touch an SAP system somewhere. Now we all know SAP is an enterprise software company. Now, NetApp would stand up and tell you NetApp storage is the cornerstone of running SAP in your data center. We've been doing it for many years, decades, in fact. But SAP runs as a service in the cloud. And that too is built on data. We have a role to play there too. We have customers that are saying, I want to run it in my data center. I want to run it as a cloud. So they're using SAP as a service in their own data center. And the idea is that the ability to be able to innovate across these different deployment models, all of which touch cloud in a certain way or the other, they're just exploding. Options are increasing and it's just producing choice. It's allowing our customers to reach their customers in different ways or reach entirely new customers. That's all accelerating. I think that will continue. To Sujit's point, it will continue even after the pandemic's long gone.
KSV, you want to add to that? I mean, Indian enterprises, NASSCOM's done studies and all that. So what is the sense you get?
Very interesting you said it. The sense we get also is that we did a study, as I said earlier, about 1,000 SMBs, typical SMB defined as enterprises with turnover of less than 250 crores. What we found is approximately about 67% of them have adopted cloud services in some form of other. One as a infrastructure as a service, as Ravi talked about, software as a service, a platform as a service. However, the serious adoption in terms of cloud is just about 40%, and huge opportunity for 60% of people to adopt as cloud as a service, a big demand which is still pending. The key drivers what we found, which is driving the adoption of cloud services, both by the large enterprises and by the SMB enterprises, is built around 4 framework. One is around technology. Over a period of time, the servers has become a completely shifted to a serverless computing. There's a distributed system, edge computing, containerization, and machine learning, real-time analytics. Very interesting. Analytics, big time. When you're on cloud, you're able to get real-time analytics of what is happening. That capacity and capabilities, SMBs we found, are difficult to augment their capacity they're building across. Second, which is most important, again, as Ravi alluded from an NetApp story perspective, there is a complete change of business models. As Anu also said earlier, the model is moving from a flexible consumption-based model. When the demand hits peak, when the demand requires more capacity, go for a capacity augmentation rather than building it yourself. The entire thing is moving towards a business model of consumption-based models, accelerated innovation, because people are asking that. And what we call in the study, what it says is people are looking for what you call XaaS, that is anything, everything as a service. Given a choice, they would like to have less of physical hardware, but leverage in hypercloud, hybrid cloud, or a cloud that is important. Last, what we found is a study which says for adoption of cloud from India to grow up, there is an experience of customer. Sujit, you and I know, even in your industry, in our industry, in almost every industry, there's an immersive experiences going on media. There's an hyper contextualization, hyper personalization is going on. There's a complete requirement for individual data to be captured and put across. That's also driving. All these are the drivers which is leading enhanced cloud based on the study what we did. Net summary is India is currently in a robust position to emerge as to grow the cloud revenue business on a CAGR of 30% from now to 2022, an average of 15% per year.
This is a domestic market you're talking about, sorry, or global? I mean, what revenue growth is this?
You see, this is currently India does both domestic is less, more global and global international demand. Approximately, we did about 2.5, 2.6 billion of cloud service revenue. Is expected to be very reasonably estimated, is cautiously, is about 7.2, 7.3 billion by 2022. And if you play an aggressive game, if get all these issues sorted out, it can go as high as 9.8 to 10 billion revenue. Is all the international demand, local demand being 30%, international demand being 70%.
Okay. There's one interesting question from the audience from Manish Jain. Will over-reliance on cloud mean too much power in the hands of cloud providers than your own firm?
See, I'll go back to electricity and water. It used to be at a time if you were running a factory, you located yourself near a river because you got both water and electricity out of it, right? And so much has been written about it. At some point, you realize that the innovation is occurring completely elsewhere. Cloud is infrastructure. And, Sujit, you, me, most of us, we really don't care about infrastructure in our day-to-day life. It's just a means to an end. So I really don't see that. Now, in the interim, as you get towards that future, you do tend to over pivot on understanding about that. The areas around security, the areas around protection, the area around the way we change the way we operate our businesses, right? I'm sure the news business is also kind of changing, evolving to kind of adapt to cloud and the potential that it provides. It's true for all of us. A very surprising fact, we think we're immune from this. I remember having a conversation with one of our senior executives 5 years ago when we were kind of leading into this cloud stuff. And he said, Ravi, take a guess. How many cloud services do you think we have deployed at NetApp? And I said maybe 14 or 15. I was surprised at the number. 758 at that time. If I was applying for leave, it was a cloud service, right? So we seem to think cloud is this giant thing, but it just enables many things at micro scale.
This was a big company, is it?
This is at NetApp, right? So NetApp is
NetApp itself.
At NetApp 5 years ago. I mean, 758. So our leave thing is a cloud service.
Okay.
How I apply for leave, right? A number of my interactions day to day, stock grants, whether you're accepting it or whatever you're doing, it is a microservice that runs in the cloud.
If I add another perspective, nobody asks this question when we have service providers like Amazon or Google, this question, who holds the power, etc. So so democratized consumption, ease of doing business. This is the factors overweighing. Then possibly are we over dependent on a technology? Because Ravi said, when we put on the electricity switch at home, fan switch at home on and off, do we carry, where is the generator carrying the electric signal? Where is it coming from, etc.? You want simplicity. That is where the world is moving. As I said, reducing the complexity in processes. That far outweighs the fear of any technology being controlled by any one person.
Yeah, I will add that. I mean, it's about to leverage. I mean, rather than building yourself, it's about leveraging what you get out of cloud and build on top of it your unique IPs. That would help you to get to market quite quicker on your unique IP.
Okay. I know I wanted to ask this before it gets too late. A lot of our audience are young people. Some of them are studying. Others are between 20 and 30. Tell them, I mean, what does cloud mean for them in terms of what the kind of things that they should be learning? How do technologies change because of this? Programming languages, is that something specific to cloud?
Definitely. Yeah. So if I answer this question, I would say that the core skills remain the same. So your programming skills, your database skills, or your domain skills are going to be same. I think of cloud as an evolution from where we started. If we go back, we had this traditional way of client server programming. You had bare metal client server programming. From there, we embraced virtualization a lot, and we have done this re-architecting or maybe a rehosting to work in that environment. And now where we move to is containerization and containers and the orchestrator which is used for that, which I would name out one or two, like Kubernetes and maybe the Docker swarms. So I would say the newer deployment models in the cloud demands or these are preferred. So an understanding on them will be definitely good to have. Similarly, like all of us touched upon, time to market is a key, which is and the cost of ownership is reducing the time to market. These two are important. The cloud is really giving you that agility to deliver very quickly. So we have moved from the old waterfall model to continuous integration and delivery. So the tools and techniques around that would be important for you to embrace. Already, KSV has spoke about the real-time analytics capabilities that is available for you with the power of cloud. So nowadays, if you think of any SaaSified application, we would be talking about making it having the real-time analytics in it. So the skills in that will be definitely interesting for you to build on. I would also speak about, we already touched about security. There is complexity. You should understand your business needs and what your cloud provider is providing. The understanding of both are required in order to make a very good secured solution that you are looking for in cloud. So building on your security related skills is important. Lastly, I would say that, of course, if you are building your career in cloud, definitely look for your certifications if you can, maybe industry certifications or by the major vendors if you think that that's what is interesting for you. I would say you could you could even go for them. Yeah, that may be something to look for. Maybe I missed to touch upon networking. I mean, the networking also is complex here, especially when you are talking about hybrids. So when you're making your system work in a hybrid model, you need skilled people in the networking area at too. So that understanding is also something which you may have to look for. So I would say when we say cloud, there is a wide variety of roles and jobs you can look for. I would say there is enough scope there. Based on your interest, you can turn into any of these areas. Yeah.
Things like Kubernetes and containers and all that you mentioned, for somebody, how should they upskill? I mean, what are the ways? I mean, there are training courses. If you're not in a company which is already offering some courses like this, what do you do?
There are, I mean, first of all, it's quite easy today to experiment yourself. I would say all the major vendors are giving you enough trial time if you want to really try out. I mean, you can get enough free hours for if you want to learn to. I would say there are I mean, you can look for online courses, and definitely there are some nice books also I could prescribe to, but maybe I won't go there right now. But I would say learning is quite easy in these days. It's not so difficult, or it's all open available things. Even Kubernetes as is open source. So I would say it is quite easy if you want to learn in these areas and upskill yourself.
Okay. Any particular programming language which is particularly important in cloud?
Programming languages, if I touch upon, like I said, your existing programming languages are not going away, and they are rightly used. I mean, if I take examples, so if you are already doing your automations, if you are in Python, I'm definitely sure, or it is going to continue and use. Maybe something recently we have gone ahead or taken up maybe is Golang newly, but we do have enough microservices written in other languages too, including Java, I mean, Spring Boot, everything. So I would say coming with containerization, you are not locked by programming language per se, but definitely picking up on newer stuff like the skills in automation, like DevOps skills. If you can pick up, it will be good. One point maybe I should have even should mention is like people have moved even beyond the containerization to serverless computing. So when it comes to serverless, right? I mean, it's even it's a journey you have even moved ahead without the server, and so that's the next step. Or people are already there. Only thing is, when you look at enterprises, you can still have people who are behind in your virtualization place, and you have not caught up to the container yet, or not moved to serverless. So I would say you have enough space here, even if you are at whichever level of that journey is.
Okay. KSV, wanted to add anything on skilling?
I love to add everything what's Anu plus always, because there's in cloud, when you say somebody to learn skills in cloud, unfortunately, cloud is just not one subject on which you can master. It lots of peripheria, which is that needs to be mastered. She did talk about analytics. A cloud and analytics becomes an internal thing. Analytics is one. Secondly, is around they can take provision the cyber security, information and cyber security course. If they go, it goes hand in hand with the way the cloud, right? And third is whether it's a curriculum at a school level or an undergraduate level and MBA level, I won't know. But even understanding the quality of service as a program to understand what does it mean, quality of service, that makes a critical difference to a successful implementation or not. Even if we say a law school, somebody wants to get into it, understanding the structuring a contract agreement, what needs to be done could be a complete thing. AR, VR, because immersive experiences that is taking place, AR, VR. As Ravi said in the beginning, completely about edge computing. So around edge computing, around software programming like Python, around cyber security, around AR, VR, around analytics. This is an entire plethora of box which is available for pickup to say that I am cloud ready. Rather than saying that understand this cloud pickup, I become a cloud ready, possibly is a misnomer.
Okay. Ravi, you wanted to add anything at all?
I'll just give you maybe a little different perspective to this, right? I think Anu and KSV both got it spot on. I'll take an example. few months ago at one of the NetApp accelerator events. We run a startup accelerator, and there was this very young entrepreneur who came in, and they were talking about some of the work they were doing around financial services using machine learning platforms on the cloud, right? And then quickly in mid-sentence, I see the same person kind of moving into talking about with such clarity around the opportunity in healthcare. And I'm asking her, so do you think you're going to move to healthcare next? And she's saying, no, 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 the patterns are the same. See, my point is what democratization is doing is it's bringing down the cost of being able to apply technology solutions to innovation. These people are changing people's world. So somebody that was kind of saying, I'll provide you faster, easier, more insightful access to a financial market is thinking about doing something similarly in healthcare, which is so different because technology allows it, right? So I'll kind of plug this back into the question you just asked. I'm a firm believer, right? Learning comes from experience. You learn by doing. So I think it's people like Anu that build the platforms that make it easy for somebody who starts in financial services to start saying, I want to innovate in healthcare, right? So if you want to learn that skill, no better way than to learn by doing. So I put in a shameless plug for NetApp, right? If you come into companies like ours and you're learning to kind of build that skill too, building it in context of domain is very important. If you look at how cloud has evolved, data is the next frontier, right? Data typically has had this gravity. You can do your compute in the cloud. You can scale up and down in the cloud, but your data is still anchored somewhere. Being able to make your data agile, your data to be applicable to more domains, that's the kind of next problem set we are working on. The skills will remain, I think, as KSV pointed out, as Anu pointed out. But do a little bit of your learning, get good on the basics, then come back and learn by doing someplace.
Okay. Learn by doing. Yeah, Shilpa?
Yeah, we have some questions coming in. This is from Rohan Tilwani. For B2B adoption of the cloud, how much is lack of resources and infrastructure a deterrent? How can this be addressed?
Can you just repeat the first part of the question, maybe?
Yeah, this is from Rohan Tilwani. For B2B adoption of the cloud, how much is lack of resources and infrastructure a deterrent? How can this be addressed?
See, if I take a shot at it, I think, in my opinion, B2B, my personal opinion, I could be wrong, but I'm not a practitioner like Ravi is. The fact is, in my opinion, there's no deterrent at all. There's no shortage of resources. The capacity is there. Network capacity is there. What is required, of course, is the some of the physical infrastructure element, whether it is in energy, electricity, current power supply, the internet bandwidth, etc. If they are more reliable and available to you much more better way than what it is today, that is a capacity concern. And talk about not physical resource capacity, A. B, second reason, what I find why the enterprise adoption, what they've done is, they don't re-engineer the processes. What they do is simply what was being manually on-prem, everything was manually, this is a cloud mein dal to kaam ho gaya. Right? Now the job is done and everything should be as efficiently. You don't deliver, you don't derive productivity and efficiency. This is very similar to the movement of ERP. ERP about 20 years back, people didn't know what to do. They were just putting everything on an automated system and they were doing automation, not productivity efficiencies. Now, exactly like this. To my mind, what ERP has become today as a livelihood issue for enterprises, your cloud for the enterprises, for enterprise connectivity is going to become exactly the same way. It won't take 20 years. Mark my word, by 2025 will be a different enterprise altogether. There's no resource constraint. It's a mindset constraint.
Actually, this is the antithesis of resource constraint. Everybody that already has a resource constraint has got way more resources than they would need if they went cloud, right? In fact, if you look at what they're trying to do, even on-prem, they're trying to become more cloud-oriented because this is what we call private cloud. Because in doing so, you free up resources. In doing so, you get out of the business of managing infrastructure, but you get into the manage of innovating on infrastructure. So, maybe that's why I felt I missed the point of the question, but infrastructure, it is not a resource constraining issue. It's a resource
Augmentation.
it produces resource as you move there.
Okay, I have this question from Varun Michael. What factors need to be considered while choosing the cloud solution for a firm's requirement? Is that a very broad question?
It is, and it's a very practical question. Now, at some level, when you look at it as services that KSV went down the path of, right? Are you looking at it as a platform? Are you looking at it as infrastructure? You're pretty much going to see similar things across different cloud providers. You know that they have a different market presence in your local region. One of the things that kind of we had been working on at NetApp as we kind of built out cloud services and in the various cloud platforms, we were very keen that they develop data platforms that are India focused, right? So Azure NetApp Files, which is a data platform in Azure, Microsoft's Azure cloud, didn't have an India presence for a very long time. And that kind of may get into a factor that's important to you because maybe you are dealing with data that needs to live in India. Maybe you want something that has proximity to a data center in India. Those kind of factors do come in. There are some more micro factors also, but most of those platforms, service providers in India, they've become smarter that they are co-locating next to the large cloud providers. Think of it, we're talking a hybrid infra. Some of it is in your data center. Some of it is in a data center owned by a hyperscaler. Some of it is sitting in between with a service provider. The speed with which you connect to all of these becomes important. So these become very localized conversations. Today, as KSV points out, you see how fast these inhibitors vanish. At which point you may want to choose whose machine learning platform am I going to use, right? And then your question is going to be, can I change my mind? You look at some of the technologies NetApp has introduced. Can you switch the infrastructure in the cloud to reduce cost? One of our acquisitions called Spot allows you to do that, right? It's a complete cost play in the cloud. Then the question is, which vendor allows me agility, moving data in and out, or using data in different platforms? That's what happens. It becomes an enabling capability.
So we are very clearly, I mean, most enterprises will invariably have most of the players, AWS, Microsoft, Google. They'll choose depending on what they think is the most appropriate for them. And
I would suggest first you as an exercise, do at your home, what is your quality of service you want? But by and large, you define the process, what is it you're serving for, what is it you want? Define your quality of service. And the core infrastructure as provided by any of these players is as secured as possibly a physical infrastructure that Ravi talked about. And most of them are good, fundamentally good. But end of the day, you define your SLAs that needs to be delivered and go with the fellow who's giving the best services to you.
Sujit, also increasingly what's going to end up happening, right? Our old decision making in IT is you go into a procurement team, you go to an infrastructure team, they are making decisions. But you look at how most businesses are operating in India, even more traditional businesses in BFSI, etc. The innovation is happening in the line of business. Someone is deciding in a bank that they want to be able to connect their system to promotions that happen in retail that's running on cloud, or they want to engage with a new partner that's selling services in the cloud. They're making these fundamental design choices which say, I need to build a service, I need to build it this week. I need to tear it down after Diwali. I need to bring it back before Christmas. I want to do something else for Holi. And they're being very tactical about choices they make. In some cases, it's a platform feature. In some cases, it's just, whatever's expedient at that point.
And the heads of those companies are allowing it for each department to kind of decide.
It's happening. It's happened globally. I'm sure it's happening here. In fact, I look at it, that is the great opportunity in India. Every time technology allows us to disrupt, we leapfrog. I'm telling you, this conversation, this conference would have been impossible 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Very clear on it. Not just because of the technology available to you, me, and KSV, It's that technology available to everyone that using even Facebook in
And
India.
I will add one more thing, Ravi, after 3 years, this conversation will be relevant.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Shilpa, a question?
Yeah, we have this question from Sapta Shri. How will cloud be used for citizen services in India by the government? For instance, the National Digital Health Mission.
KSV, you want to pick this one?
Yeah, I will. It's a good question, interesting question, because the government is one of the late users of cloud services in the country yet. If I had drawn a mapping of 1 to 5 of the various segments, the ITS segment, e-commerce segment, communications media have been the earliest and quickest adopters of government on a fight to scale. Our study shows, we did a study with Google in 2017, 2018, 2019. On a 1 to 5, there is scale adoption of between 1 and 2. The huge opportunities. It is just because there are, how will government use? They can utilize the available network infrastructure. One good example, not necessarily cloud, this customer service center, CSC, was the entire Arogya Setu, the way the government implemented it was completely cloud-based. What could be done was done. It was demonstrated is possible. It is just that they have to overcome that fear as to the reliability and security and data privacy that is required. So once that get established as a framework, which currently government is working on, to my mind, that available and required infrastructures are available. The process governance is available. The framework is available. It's just a question of deployment. For example, even this launching of the private data privacy bill, or say the personal data protection bill or data localization, if this gets done, it gets much more clarity of where data reside. If those frameworks are across, government will be the fastest and quickest adopters. Let's look at it. The kind of mobile connectivity what we have in the country, the kind of internet connectivity what we have in the country, the BharatNet program of Government of India has got to cover all the villages in the country by 2025. All augurs well for delivery of CSC services. Even today, the CSC services are leveraging many capacities of the internet that will go through cloud for sure. When this adoption gets increased, awareness about adoption gets increased.
If I'll add to that, if you look at, we treat these as technology kind of conversations, but they are also about capability. Now, if you look at it, and not just to pick on government, you look at almost any enterprise. As this pandemic struck, some were better prepared than others, right? Some were scrambling, how do I get to be able to do work from home? Others were already being able to do work from home. Some were just testing it out and corrected very quickly. Some businesses are able to operate, right? If you take healthcare, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are some people that are able to do this whole teleconsult really seamlessly. Others are not, even within the same organization. It's definitely true across. I'll give you a couple of examples in government, right? When this whole pandemic hit us at some point, at 9:45 at night, I'm sitting on a Zoom call with my legal counsel, and we are trying to get the permission of some sort so that we can, operate the Bangalore office under some slightly different circumstances. 9:45, we're doing this. He's telling me, here's a link they've sent. We are doing something on the internet. 3 minutes, we are done. He hung up the call. Then he calls me back. He's saying, Ravi, I just want you to know, I cannot believe that the government gave us permission to operate, and we got it done on the internet and in 5 minutes. It was just, it hadn't occurred to me because it was the first time I was ever doing it, but apparently they spent months doing it, visiting offices, and it got done on the internet. I'll tell you this, I don't know, maybe I'm a little outlier, but I really do appreciate that, my income tax scrutiny happens online as an e-assessment. It's a happy thing that you can kind of do this, because those departments have adapted to operating on the internet. They have operated, and that's an important skill. That's where we will leapfrog, right? Because the infrastructure will allow us to adapt.
Yeah, if I may add, I'll say, digitization is happening in every field and government can't stay out of it. So, and if the technology is going towards cloud, then government can't stay out of that too. So it may be like KSV just pointed out, it's like between 1 and 2 in the scale of 5 today, but it is going to improve.
You know, while I'm talking to you, very interesting you put this question, Anu. As at NASSCOM, we are working with MeitY to work out a governance framework of how to adopt cloud in various state governments and government departments across the country, including say that how to define the quality of service and possibly study and I'm using the wrong word, shortlist the cloud service providers to the guidelines that could be done, model RFP that could be drawn for people to engage with the cloud service providers, become simplified process. So you don't have to relearn and learn everything that is required. So what is, you define, this is likely scenarios, this is likely players, this is likely deliverables, likely quality of service, customize it at state level, start adopting it and move, that lead to faster adoption. It's all happening. It is just that question of when they launch it, government catches by off guard completely. I just say when elephant decides to dance, it's a...
The income tax system and all that, are they on a public cloud, Ravi?
I don't know. It works like a public cloud.
Works like a public cloud.
Right?
Okay.
It's like I can upload my documents. I can see an alert that comes on my phone that tells me to go look at a portal. It asks me, I mean, it's very intelligently designed, right? It may not be the slickest of interfaces, but it asks me a yes/no question, right? And someone in the back end is satisfied with the answers without me knowing their name, without them calling me, without me having to take a professional in an office, without everybody getting all worried and worked up, right? They have an honest question, I have an honest answer, it's all done with.
Okay. Do you have any case studies and anything that, any metrics that tells you, you move to the cloud, you save so much, or anything that you have?
Off the top of my head, no, but we can definitely get you stuff that's been studied, I mean, to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
You know, almost self-evident because we don't keep the numbers, but the point at least I don't keep the numbers on my head, but the point is there is an entire cycle that is so expensive that you completely eliminate. This notion of procuring, this notion of owning, right? Anybody that's ever used an Uber or an Ola, as opposed to leasing a car, as opposed to owning a car, these are so self-evident now. And I'll take examples of the startups that we work with. Not one of them owns infrastructure.
Okay.
At all. No need for it. Absolutely no need for it. It reduces the barrier to entry for them. It actually eliminates the barrier to exit, which is so important for some of these entrepreneurs. They want to fail fast and move on to the next thing, right?
And
very important.
Again,
so basically what, they just need a monitor or something, is it?
No, they just need an ability to give you a service, Sujit, that you are willing to use and I'm willing to use, right?
They come with a personal device, Sujit. They require all the personal device.
Your phone. They need you to come in with your phone to consume their service.
That has been our experience also in the startup program that we run, etc. Almost all the service providers do provide the cloud option as an option for people to adopt, because at the beginning, a startup would like to develop on a particular platform, Azure or Amazon, say, even say the Google platform, but they're not too sure which side the market is going. They can take multiple platforms together or shift from one platform. Things are completely evolving. So to the extent completely, the startup momentum is next. It's going to be a big driver for growth of cloud from India.
And to bring that back into our interest in it, right? When that startup becomes big, comes the realization I'm better off owning that infrastructure and running it as a cloud. And the hybrid story plays in beautifully because I don't disrupt your current business model. I just allow you to operate in different economics in a data center that you can now afford. In fact, not just afford, it's actually more optimal for you to own that.
Yeah.
Data center.
I remember this. It reminded me, Flipkart told us some time ago that they moved from cloud to a private data center when they became so big. And to manage that kind of scale, they said they were running into problems with some of the public cloud providers, that the public cloud providers did not have some of those facilities that they needed.
Correct.
Anyway, those public cloud service providers themselves, their capabilities are also improving all the time. So maybe by now they can handle some of those things. Shilpa, questions?
Yeah, this question is from Tanya Rumta. How would you define the cloud normal in one sentence?
Cloud normal, any idea?
Speed is what I would say. That's what it is. It's about speed and agility.
Yeah,
speed and agility.
I would say time to market.
Time to market.
I would say it's simple to use.
Hmm.
I
Right.
know.
Right. Yeah. Anu,
Yeah,
I would also, sorry, go ahead, Sujit.
lots of questions coming in. There's one from Chaitra Rao. With data privacy being a big concern in the current times and the buzz around localized data centers, what does it mean for cloud?
All the vendors are adapting. All the vendors are adapting. Everybody is looking to put up infrastructure in country. Everyone is, and we are clearly in the middle of that because we want you to be in that cloud, in country or out. We want you to be able to do it in your data center. Yeah. Now, over time, I think some of these concerns will go away, but there is a lot of politics also. There's a lot of possession and ownership that goes with it also.
Okay.
And so it's across the spectrum, right? There are businesses today that feel, forget out of the country, not out of my sight. I want it in my data center under lock and key with an armed guard outside, and I don't want to tell you where it is. We want you to be able to enable that. And then there are others that say, okay, and if you're going to be in cloud, don't exit the country. The reason service providers are so successful also because you have more control over your data when it sits with a service provider than it sits in a cloud provider.
Okay.
The scale is different, right? Your contracts are more customized with a service provider, particularly the more localized ones. And it's all part of that continuum, part of that ecosystem.
Anu, you wanted to say something?
I would say that, I mean,
data privacy, I mean, there are enough controls now, and as Ravi was also saying.
Yeah, like Ravi was saying, yeah, I mean, one of our acquisitions was also based on cloud compliance, I would say. Yeah, so the cloud compliance is a very important topic, and it's a right question. Like I would say, Ravi also mentioned, for example, the European Union situation where we have to abide to the GDPR compliance when it comes to data. So cloud providers are enabling it for you to have the data center right in your country, right in your region, to make sure that you are able to comply to that and still use the flexibility and elasticity coming out of cloud. So years back when the early days, yeah, we didn't had enough regions which may have inhibited you from adopting, but today it's going off.
Okay.
KSP's point on simplicity matters here also.
Yeah.
You could have all these options, right? How do you convince yourself that you are secure? How do you convince yourself that you have stewardship over your data? How do you convince yourself it's protected and you have the privacy you need? And that to us comes down into how do you have visibility over the data, regardless of where it is hosted, where it is residing, right? Because that is your asset. And I think that's kind of where we are focusing also, right? It's like, yeah, you could be in 6 different places. You're dealing with 6 different systems. How do you get the trust that you are satisfied with your data, regardless of where it is?
You give that kind of visibility to the...
That's exactly the point of building out what we call a data fabric, right? We're saying your data could be sitting multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, on-prem, off-prem, all of that. But the question is, do you have visibility across that fabric of data that you are able to assure yourself it is protected, it is governed, it is compliant, it is secure, it's not being misused?
Shilpa?
This question is from Ria Mary John. How robust is cloud security today?
Well, we discussed that multiple times, but go ahead.
As I said, it never be secure, right? It's just a question of continuous evolving. Again, on a 1 to 5 level of security, we would be above 3. One would not give 5 because, as I said, framework exists and ability to resolve issues when it gets reported exists. Perimeter security, all the product exists, but data is secure as long as you believe it is secure, right? The hacker is going to find ways to do it, but hacking is taking place, but reaction is also equally swift and faster. So I would say the cloud is secure. Let's look at again. If I look at SaaS as a platform under cloud computing, one of the platform, SaaS is completely secured. Otherwise, people won't be using cross. right? Then you look at the platforms as a service, again, moving towards service. The infrastructure thing, a lot of things have happened. So vulnerability is on the infrastructure. Application side, it's much more secure.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting question from Sonali. What's cloud's role in unlocking the possibilities of 5G in India? How ready is India in terms of infrastructure?
It's not a question of how ready. Just imagine an autonomous vehicle, driver-assisted vehicle happening, it's a 2 to 3 years from now, not the driverless vehicle, beyond the driverless vehicle, autonomous vehicle, driver-assisted vehicle, etc., or a good healthcare system that Ravi spoke about earlier, etc. It requires a minimum latency time. It requires a minimum latency time, maximum availability of application, maximum availability of analytics, intelligence that is required for take a decision. That just get augmented 5x to 15x by just available of 5G. A 5G with micro cells and micro towers that's available, data being available to you. And one of the concept of 5G is going to be a big push and thrust to edge computing. Edge computing, the 5G put together. So we're going to completely transform the way the cloud is going to be consumed. The cloud is going to be adopted. It's just, as we were discussing in the beginning, the theme of the seminar also, are we in the next wave of cloud explosion? Just wait for 5G. Things will completely change. Unknown, and I wouldn't say unknown, an unsolicited sector like automobile, beyond e-commerce, beyond ITES, healthcare, energy, the entire thing is going to go through a complete transformation with availability of 5G.
Yeah, 5G, I will add, like, it is going to be a catalyst for cloud adoption. If 5G is enabled, you are going to, the IoT area is going to have an explosion, because you are going to get the data back to cloud so quickly that your analytics and the machine learning possibilities and solutions that you can make out of cloud is going to be immense, and it's going to be a real catalyst. So 5G is something cloud will be waiting for, I would say.
Okay.
Also an active area of, I think, innovation. Because you think of it, we just moved off that mindset of everything was locked up in a data center. Now it's spread across multiple clouds. And pretty soon it's going to be sitting in billions of devices, right? The whole notion of security, protection, what needs to be secured, what needs to be protected, it's turning on its head. And people are starting to think of these as highly distributed problems, right? Massively scaled distribution problems. But I think, KSV, I'm just waiting for the day that, I don't know that the car will drive itself in Bangalore, but it'll help us be better drivers, right? By keeping us in our lanes and...
even today on a driver-assisted vehicle, you've got several features building software.
Of course.
Just imagine a 5G network, imagine a cloud service provider, imagine more and more applications being available. Where did we have, many things are going to completely change. As they said, even in Times of India article today, in automobile is going to be a software on wheels.
I think the cars will make us better drivers.
Shilpa, any more questions?
One question from my side, Anu. You've been a principal engineer at NetApp. How do you think the companies like yours are accelerating the diversity agenda to have more women talent across different levels?
I would say it's I have myself put up a Women in Tech brand today, and I myself is one of the co-leads of Women in Tech in NetApp. We have a very strong Women in Tech org or track within NetApp, which is kind of helping the diversity growth and improving the women community in NetApp. So we are ourselves organized in such a way that it is looking at the various aspects of development that is required for the diversity and inclusion. We have tracks for professional development, personal development. Myself is co-leading for the technology and innovation track. So it's like a holistic development space that NetApp provides. I feel we recently had a review of how we matters and how secure we feel. I will say absolutely secure, and I really vouch for NetApp as a leader in promoting the diversity and inclusion, and especially representing our women panelists here.
That's so good, and more power to you.
Definitely.
Great, yeah. Out of time, I think even in our page making software, it's all on the cloud now. I can in real time see where my colleague sitting. I don't know where he's sitting. I don't even know where he sits, where his house is. But in real time, I can see the page that he's making. I can see my Bombay colleagues and the Delhi colleagues in real time making those pages. And then we can drag and drop those stories. If I like this particular Bombay story, I can put it into the Bangalore page or the Delhi story. It's become so much easier in some ways. Otherwise, a lot of exchange of mails and pages and all kinds of things. But absolutely. I mean, in real time, I can correct. If I see something going wrong on the page, I can in real time correct it there and then, or change the headline or whatever. So it's fascinating what cloud can do. And like you said, simplicity, of course, speed, agility, time to market. So thanks a lot to NetApp for associating with Times Techies webinars. Thanks a lot, KSV. Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, Anu. Great conversation. And
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.